When the super secret redacted classified codex was revealed to be Imperial Agents, the Deathwatch were moved out of their own index and into the Imperial Agents codex, so instead of acting as another add-on to the Adeptus Astartes, they are part of the Inquisition-themed Imperial Agents. So the Deathwatch units exist there, also Legends units. It's an army, but an army without an army rule. Their army rule allows them to be allied into other different armies of the Imperium. When you field them by themselves, as their own army within their own codex, there is no army rule. But they do have their own themed detachment, the Ordo Xenos Alien Hunters Detachment. I don't think you'll like it if you didn't like the Black Spear Task Force. It is basically identical. But now the stratagems work on just a single Deathwatch unit, rather than 2 Deathwatch kill teams or 1 Adeptus Astartes unit. The special ammunition isn't just tied to bolt guns, it's all the weapons in the squad when you're shooting them. So it's a very shooting-focused detachment, and you still get the mission tactics, but the assassination mission tactic triggers on a critical wound, not a critical hit. So when you combine that with the special ammunition to get critical wounds against infantry on a 2+, you can very easily murder a lot of characters. The Deathwatch can also work really well, sort of by themselves, in the Imperialis Fleet Detachment. I am okay with it, because I have fun with an army that can infiltrate or deep strike with everything. But I also play Genestealer Cult. You may find that your only nearby gaming group are people who don't want to use the official ruling on Legends, and instead want to use tournament rules and tournament limitations all the time, even though they're not at a tournament. This seriously limits your ability to use these Imperial Agents detachments effectively, while also feeling like a Deathwatch army, because most of the kill teams are Legends units. So why did you click on this video? You may be here because you want to find out how else you can field your Deathwatch before Games Workshop updates the Deathwatch in December. If you didn't know that was happening, I have a video explaining it. Or maybe that update has already happened, you hate it, and you have come here for alternatives. Or perhaps you just saw my face and thought, I wonder what japes and tomfoolery Christian von Carmian is up to today. So, if you don't fancy the Ordo Xenos Alien Hunters Detachment or the Imperialis Fleet Detachment, what else is there to make the Deathwatch feel more like how they played in 7th, 8th and 9th edition? You can use Deathwatch units from the Imperial Agents Codex and Legends in a Space Marine army using the army special rule of those units, the Assigned Agents rule. Depending on the size of the game you're playing, you can ally in a certain number of Deathwatch units into your Space Marine army. It also works with other Imperial armies. And technically, including Genestealer Cult, if you want to be funny about it and use rules as written, that is an option. But you generally want your army to feel more like it's Deathwatch focused and not Space Marines with some add-ons. And there are quite a lot of drawbacks if that is your ideal way to play Deathwatch. Space Marine characters can't join your kill teams, so the Lieutenant and the Apothecary that were in the Combat Patrol box, they can't join kill teams. Because there's a list of what units they can join, kill teams are not on there. Any auras from Space Marine units will not affect the Deathwatch units because the Deathwatch do not have the Adeptus Astartes keyword. They have the Agents of the Imperium keyword. So a Space Marine Dreadnought in a Space Marine army would not affect any allied in Deathwatch units. And because you don't have the Adeptus Astartes keyword, you don't get the benefits of any Space Marine stratagems, because all of those stratagems are tied to keyword Adeptus Astartes. Even though the Deathwatch are Space Marines, even though they are Adeptus Astartes TM trademark Games Workshop copyright, they don't have the keyword on their datasheet, so they can't use those stratagems. This also applies to any army rules, like the Oath of Moment. They don't have Oath of Moment. They have Assigned Agents as a rule, so no rerolls from that. The only way you're getting rerolls is if you have the Deathwatch Veterans team and you have their unit ability, because their unit ability allows you to reroll ones or reroll all hits against alien units. And unaligned, because any barricades and fortresses need to go down, apparently. Because you lack the Adeptus Astartes keyword, you won't get the benefit of any detachment bonuses. So if you're playing them in the Gladius Task Force, while the rest of the army is advancing and still shooting, the Deathwatch units won't be. If you looked at the Alien Hunters detachment and them enhancements and you thought, yeah, they're cool, they fit the Deathwatch, I want them in my Deathwatch Space Marine army, it doesn't work, because when you pick a detachment, it's from the parent codex. So in this case, a Space Marine codex chooses a Space Marine detachment, like the Gladius Task Force, so you don't get any of the enhancements or stratagem access from the Alien Hunters detachment. When you're being lent out as allies, that is not an option. You cannot pick the Alien Hunters detachment as a Space Marine army with Deathwatch units included. And when you're including those Deathwatch units, there is that limit on how many you can include. At 2,000 points, you're looking at 2 kill teams, one led by Captain Artemis, one led by a Watchmaster. That is it. That's all you get. And the Deathwatch units may cost more points when included in a Space Marine army than they would if they're fielded in the Imperial Agents codex. Right now, at time of recording, October-ish 2024, their points are the same in the Imperial Agents codex or when using the assigned agents rule, but that can change. Points change every 3 months. So you might find that, yes, I have the perfect army that works in this detachment, you put them in a Space Marine army, and suddenly, oh no, it doesn't work anymore because they've suddenly gained 20 or 30 points. Even though they're the same units, with actually fewer special abilities available to them. All of these are problems and elements that Games Workshop may try and potentially fail to address when they update the Deathwatch rules in December 2024. They all need to be working so that there is a functioning Deathwatch Adeptus Astartes army. I wish the rules writers the best of luck now that Games Workshop is dangling them over a pack of rabid anti-Xenos fans. So this video will go through alternate ways to use Deathwatch so that they are still compatible with the rules and provide better bonuses than being Imperial Agents. There is a little bit of counts as. These rules proxy your Deathwatch as another faction or sub-faction, but keep part of the flavour. In 10th edition, you can switch detachment every game and your army will play differently every time you play, and that is fine. But knowing community feeling, you will want to pick one of these rule sets to permanently be your army faction. If you are just trying out a faction rules as a one-off, that is fine with most people. But if you had something more elf-like, like models that you made to represent Exodites and ran them as Ynnari, but then Eldari got good in the meta and so you switched to using their rules, but then Drukhari got good, so suddenly you start using their rules. That may start to annoy your regular opponents and you'll get known as a certain kind of cheesy gamer. Not full on cheddar, but a bit Wensleydale if you know what I mean. The Deathwatch rules changing up very often is par for the Deathwatch. The last 3 editions have had their rules change multiple times each edition, and 10th edition is no different. But if you only have Deathwatch or only have Deathwatch Space Marines, and you keep playing tournament style with a set of L-shaped buildings and preset missions, you're gonna find 40k very stale very quickly. By changing up the rule set your army plays, it can keep that spice alive, and each suggestion I have plays into one theme of the Deathwatch. That is, if you want change. Just keep using the index. The rules should be compatible with the rest of 40k for a while. And all your friends are here! All your weird kill teams, but mostly the Proteus kill team. It's basically the same as Legends, but unlike the Agents, the Imperium and Legends, you can attach your Space Marine characters to kill teams and have the benefit of all the auras. You use the rules version after the fix the Space Marine Codex so that characters like the Captains and Apothecaries can still join those units. That was the January 2024 update, which meant that characters that could join Sternguard or Vanguard veterans could also join the kill teams. That rule was on the kill team cards. So let's just go back to January. Come December 2024, the new Deathwatch version may just be the Black Spear Task Force, but without the ability to attach characters, because that would require the minimum of effort. And then they can say, oh yeah, there's a captain. Well, it can join the units that the captain can normally join. Can't join the kill teams because we haven't added that back in. This may just end up being better. And change is scary and the work of big blue demons, so ignore it and keep playing the way you want to play. Deathwatch were not going to tournaments anyway, so you're really not missing out. There were about 3 regular Deathwatch tournament players at the main events. There are hundreds of Deathwatch players who watch my videos and don't go to tournaments, and I'm only capturing a small part of the 40k fandom. The part that can tolerate Vtubers and knows that I exist. But what if we want to do something that's a bit more Firstborn focused, but really going hard on the teleportation? Then you can use the Grey Knights rule. We have the Grey Knights Index rule, Teleport Assault. It's like a number of your units get to use the Black Spear Task Force teleport stratagem for free at the end of your opponent's turn. It has an Armour of Contempt style stratagem, which you don't get in the Imperialis Fleet detachment, and the Death from the Warp stratagem gives assault and +1 to hit, so it has the feel of special ammunition. It works as a theme. The strike squad rules could be used to represent Deathwatch veterans, so the frag cannon is a psi cannon, the Infernus heavy bolter is an incinerator or a psi lancer. The Terminators are cool. You've got Deathwatch Terminators, well now you have Terminators counts as with different weapons. The Paladin Terminator squad has 3 special guns, like the Deathwatch Terminators do. So if you didn't want to use the Legends rules, you can use Paladin Terminator rules. Playing the Deathwatch this way will give you very tough elites. They all have a 2+ save. So it captures that super specialized experienced veteran feel. Deathwatch get the best and strangest equipment, and the Grey Knight rules can represent that. Purifier squads have a very similar rule to the Fortis and Proteus kill team. They can be a good representation. And the Dreadnought aura, it works on your units. It's like the Space Marine Dreadnought, but you also reroll wound rolls of 1. If you also want to have the Black Star and the Deathwatch veteran kill team, you can add them in as allies with the assigned agent rules if your weapons do fit the veterans, but you don't think they accurately fit the Grey Knight units. And the Grey Knights have a lot of the Space Marine vehicles that you can enter. Rhinos, Razorbacks, Land Raiders. The Grey Knight's Deathwatch can enter these Grey Knight vehicles. It feels like Elite Space Marines because it is Elite Space Marines. But there are drawbacks to doing it this way. They don't quite feel like kill teams with a lot of varied weapons and profiles. These are just slight variation on Grey Knight infantry units. All of the Grey Knight infantry are like that. The difference between a Purifier squad and a Strike squad is minimal, while kill teams are very different from one another. And you can't take Space Marine units like Blade Guard and Assault Intercessors, units that you may have in your army. None of those get represented, and you can already have 3 Grey Knight Terminator units in an Agents of the Imperium army. They're not battle line in the Agents, but if you want fancy Terminators, you can already get fancy Terminators. So let's try something different. The other Grey option. Yes, we are entertaining the wolf idea, but they have a benefit. They have specialized units and they have characters in various armor types that can join other units. So the way to do it is to add lots of wolf pack leaders. They have cool special weapons like Twin Lightning Claws, Thunderhammer and Storm Shield, Storm Bolter and Storm Shield if you have models that love storming things. Wolf Guard leaders in Terminator armor can be added to a 5-man unit to make things like a mini Proteus kill team. They still get options to lots of Terminator weapons like the Cyclone missile launcher, or the Assault Cannon and Chain Fist, or Twin Lightning Claws, which are becoming rarer in the Space Marine Codex. Adding these characters also makes it easier to complete the sagas of the Space Wolf detachment. A lot of these Space Wolf units are like Elite Space Marines. The Grey Hunters are not really tactical Marines. They can have 2 special weapons and a sergeant with a special weapon like a plasma pistol, and they can all have chainswords at the same time. This feels very Deathwatch for the number of special weapons and better combat prowess you have compared to normal Marines. If you have a Deathwatch Terminator squad with a mix of combat and shooting loadout, the Wolfguard Terminators will fit them. If you have a unit that has hammers and shields, that could be Wolford, while a kill team with lots of shooting weapons like plasma pistols and combi weapons can be represented as that using the Wolfguard rules. The positives of using the Space Wolf Index rather than the Imperial Agents Codex is you can use any Space Marine detachment. So if you liked the Gladius Task Force, which became my preferred detachment, you have it there again. And you get the benefit of Space Marine stratagems, you get the Adeptus Astartes keyword, and you have Oath of Moment, or the Space Wolf detachment itself. Those rules are now not awful. It works well this way as there are a load of character models to go in your units, so you put lots of the Wolfguard leaders in other squads. The detachment rule for the sagas is very similar to the Deathwatch mission tactics in feel. One of them starts auto-completed for the entire game. If you want a unit to have sustained hits or lethal hits in combat, use the Warrior Pride stratagem. It is like the Deathwatch Adaptive Tactics stratagem. You definitely get weird units using the Space Wolves. You get Space Marine characters that can join your kill teams. And you can use all of the main Space Marine units like Eliminators, Judiciars, Land Raiders, all of the Primaris units as well. If you want to also have a Black Star and Deathwatch veterans, you can add them in if the weapons do fit the veterans but don't fit the Space Wolves units. Assigned Agents is there as a backup. The drawbacks to doing it this way is you're using the Smelly Wolf rules. And people might talk. Chat was not happy when I mentioned in a live stream that I had done it. This may be a temporary solution. We don't know when a version of the Space Wolf Codex will come out, but that will likely push a lot of units to Legends, which can upset people. So this can mean that, like the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels, the Space Wolves play like a slight variation on Space Marines, rather than their own force that doesn't follow the Codex Astartes.
The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
But you wouldn't see some animation where Deathwatch revere the Primarch of the Ultramarines, would you? Okay, I'm a traitor now. So what about using the Chaos Space Marine rules? Going for Chaos Space Marines gives you the Firstborn style, but not much of the Primaris versions. And if you're going by the lore, modern Black Shields in a Deathwatch veteran unit can technically come from Renegades or Traitors. It's how the Alpha Legion could infiltrate. It's how the whole Watch Fortress could become chaosified, if you wanted to represent that. We're still killing aliens. So how does it work? You use the Veterans of the Long War detachment as you get an Oath of Moment back under the name Focus of Hatred. The Let the Galaxy Burn stratagem is ignore cover for shooting, which is like the Dragonfire rounds. This is a Chaos detachment that has an Armor of Contempt version to keep your Marines going against shooting, and if you ever got annoyed that your kill teams were crushed in combat before they could fight, the Bringers of Despair can give you fight first. We have something like the mission tactics, where you get lethal hits or sustained hits, from praying to the gods via dark pacts. If failed, then maybe rather than someone getting killed by the Emperor for daring to request a blessing that the Battle Sisters get, it could represent someone who went off for more ammo. See, that is not a Chaos icon. It is a big box of special ammunition. Or the Codex Astartes.
Codex Astartes does not support this action.
Oh, shut up, Leandros! You were never welcome in the Deathwatch. The Chosen could be good stand-ins for Deathwatch veterans or legionaries. There's a variety of weapon options for the squad. And Chaos Space Marines has Lords as captains, Sorcerers as librarians, and Dark Apostles as chaplains. It has Terminators with a variety of weapons. It has Firstborn style bikers. And you can keep the black armor. The Long War Veterans detachment is Black Legion themed. So the positives of doing it this way, you can feel very Firstborn Space Marine, which is something that people are like, ah, yes, the Primaris, the buy your whole Space Marine army again models. Forget that. We're going Firstborn. And if you like having some humans running around supporting you in the Imperial Agents, there are cultists that can represent them. If you are more Black Templar inclined, the cultists could represent the Fanatics, and the Dark Apostles have attendants like the Black Templar chaplains have in the art. The drawbacks are there's nothing for non-veteran style kill teams. There's nothing Primaris here. And you do have to justify it in style a bit more. These are not Space Marines. And in the last couple of editions, the Chaos Space Marines have changed from just being spiky Space Marines to more of their own thing, especially with demon engines. And none of these units have the Imperium keyword, so you can't take Imperial Agents allies, so if there was a particular kill team you wanted to add in, you can't. Let's do a couple of quick other options. So you could try the Dark Angels to get plasma cannons back on your Terminators, you get powerful Terminator units, and you get veteran bikers of a sort. You could use the Black Stars as Nephilim fighters, and you get all the regular Space Marine units. This is an option. Depends if you like their detachments or you just want to go, again, like the Space Wolves, stick with the Space Marine Codex detachments. You could try the Blood Angels to use a Liberator Assault group with the same sort of outcome, but it feels less like a watch company of heroes and more like a close combat focused Space Marine army. The rules are good, but the theme is missing. And it feels lore opposed to use the detachment to represent that time kill teams destroyed an Orc War without spilling any blood. You do get regular Space Marine units, and the Furioso Dreadnought has a gun that is a heavy frag cannon, so that matches the Deathwatch theme. That unit should be coming to a Legends document soon. Oh, and it also has units in black armor. So there's that. And you can add in allies from the Deathwatch if you want, because it is no longer restricted in the Blood Angels Codex. And again, you get all the Space Marine army rules like Oath of Moment on your Marines. From playtesting, My preference is the Black Templars. It works as elite units in black armor. This is familiar territory for Deathwatch players. You can use any of the Space Marine detachments, so if you like the Gladius Task Force, you have it again. And the Black Templars detachment in their index is like the Black Spear detachment, where you get to pick one bonus at the start instead of it changing each time. It's only going to be triggering in melee, but I always felt that the Deathwatch did better in melee, while the Black Spear Task Force really focused on shooting with all the special ammunition, something we were generally not as good at compared to smashing people with big hammers. And the Fervent Acclamation stratagem is your adaptive tactics equivalent to change Doctrine Vow for a unit. The Black Templars hate the Xenos a lot, so it fits. There is the Black Armor, and it can sort of address one of the weird things in lore. Deathwatch have some unusual lore things. They don't use scouts, they don't recruit their own people. But in the 42nd millennium, they got a load of new and barely trained Primaris Marines who had to learn how to Deathwatch properly and were a permanent part of the Deathwatch, with no other chapter to call home, no previous experience to draw on. The Crusader squads that are a mix of initiates and neophyte brothers could represent veterans trying to train those Primaris Marines. They shadow a Space Marine, and they can learn that way. And for some reason, I like the word neophyte. Do you want to become a beloved neophyte of Von Carmian? That is an option as a tier to support me on Ko-fi. It's full of cool people, and it keeps the videos going for £2 a month. And these Crusader squads have something that other Space Marine units don't. You get shotguns. There was mild outcry in the Deathwatch Index when we didn't get shotguns, just long vigil ranged weapons, so you can have shotguns again. And you get weird alternate Space Marine units back. Instead of a Judicia, have the Emperor's Champion. It isn't fight first, but it is an awesome person who does combat attacks really well. You can then also have a Judicia elsewhere in the army. Instead of veterans equipped for combat, have Sword Brethren. Being able to go in with 3 wounds per model and the option for +1 damage on all weapons, be it chainswords, lightning claws, or thunderhammers, it feels good. And I do recommend attaching a character to that unit just so the character can benefit from the +1 damage on melee weapons. Instead of the Primaris Fortis kill team, which honestly wasn't very good, use the Primaris Crusader squad. If you saw the lack of Infernus Marines in the Fortis kill team and want to remedy that, there are Pyre Blasters in this squad. Or have Power Fists instead. With the Firstborn Crusader squad, you have more of a feel of 5 Marines with specialist weapons, which suits the Deathwatch theme. And again, if you also want to have the Black Star, or a Deathwatch kill team that doesn't have a suitable equivalent in the Black Templars army, you can add them in using the assigned agents rule. And you get all the Space Marine bonuses, except for the kill teams that are taken from the Imperial Agents codex or legends as allies. Because when you take them as allies, they don't have the Adeptus Astartes keyword. If you loved having lots of tanks as a Deathwatch player, this has more tanks than ever. If you wanted a swarm of elite infantry, this will suit you as well. So which version do you like best as an alternative way to play Imperial Agents Deathwatch detachment rules? Let me know in the comments, or if there is another option I haven't mentioned, maybe deliberately, what other ways are there to run the Deathwatch? Or you can look at all that and decide, you know, Imperial Agents is the best way for me, so here's how to run Deathwatch in Imperial Agents until we get a new way to play them in December. Have a great day purging the alien!